The Man in Apartment 104, a disturbing true police horror story. Some calls stick with you forever. Even for seasoned officers, there are nights that leave marks. Marks that don't fade with time. This is one of those nights. A real 911 call. A real officer. And a nightmare that no amount of training could ever prepare them for. I worked as a patrol officer in a mid-sized town in Ohio for over 12 years. We got our fair share of weird calls, domestic disputes, drunk drivers, even the occasional bizarre prank. But nothing could prepare me for what I experienced in the fall of 2018. That night still haunts me. It was a cold Thursday evening in October. I was partnered with Officer Davis that night. A good guy, solid cop. We were doing our usual rounds when a 911 dispatch came through. Possible welfare check. Caller reports strange behavior from neighbor in apartment 104. Possible self-harm or mental breakdown. We weren't far from the apartment complex. Just 6 minutes out. The caller was an elderly woman, Mrs. Landon, who lived across from the man in question. She said she'd been hearing bizarre noises all week. Screaming at odd hours. The sound of furniture dragging. And chanting. We pulled into the complex at around 8:47 p.m. It was already dark. The place was eerily quiet. I remember the way the porch lights flickered as we walked up the steps, like something out of a horror movie. I even joked about it. Davis didn't laugh. Apartment 104 was at the far end of the hall, ground floor. We knocked. No response. We knocked again. Still nothing. That's when we heard it. A low, guttural sound. Almost like growling. We exchanged glances. Davis knocked once more, louder this time. "Sir, this is the police. We need to check on your welfare. Please open the door." Still no response. But the growling continued, louder now. And something else. A scraping noise, like nails across a chalkboard. We were about to call it in as forced entry when the door creaked open by itself. It wasn't locked. Inside, darkness. No lights, just a faint smell of burnt meat and something else, rot. We stepped inside, cautiously. Flashlights drawn. Hand on my weapon. "Sir, this is the police. We're here to help." No answer. The apartment was trashed. Furniture overturned. Black symbols drawn on the walls in what looked like charcoal. Or blood. Honestly, it could have been either. There was a massive stain on the carpet in the center of the room, like something had soaked in deep, and in the middle of that stain, a pile of small animal bones. That's when Davis whispered, "Jesus Christ, look at that." We turned to the far corner of the room, near the bathroom. There he was, a man, shirtless, kneeling with his back to us. Long, tangled hair. His skin pale, almost blue in color. He was rocking back and forth. We approached slowly. "Sir, are you okay? We need to talk to you." He didn't respond, just kept rocking, murmuring to himself in some language I didn't recognize. It wasn't English, wasn't Spanish. Honestly, it didn't sound human. Davis stepped forward and gently tapped his shoulder. The man froze, dead still, no movement, no sound. And then he turned his head, only his head, completely around. Like something out of The Exorcist. I stepped back, hand now fully on my firearm. His eyes were wide, too wide, and entirely black. No whites, no pupils, just endless black. He looked right at us and whispered, "It's inside now." And then he collapsed, body limp, not breathing. We called it in immediately, requested EMTs, backup, everything. While we waited, I noticed something, a notebook on the kitchen counter, old, leather-bound, looked handmade. I flipped it open. The pages were filled with symbols, drawings of eyes, teeth, spirals, and pages of writing in that same strange language. Near the back, one entry was in English, just one. It read, "The shadow wants a vessel. I let it in. It needs more now, more minds. More bodies. It feeds on fear." The aftermath, the man was later identified as Gregory M. Lyle. No prior history of mental illness. No criminal record. Worked at a local bookstore. The autopsy revealed he had died of extreme internal hemorrhaging. Every organ was liquefied. Doctors couldn't explain it. They called it massive spontaneous organ failure. No drugs in his system. No poison. Nothing. His body just gave out. The animal bones? From multiple species. Squirrels, birds, even a cat. All picked clean. The notebook was confiscated. We were told not to talk about it. No official report was ever made public. Mrs. Landon moved out 2 days later. She left a note for the property manager. One line. He was feeding it something. I saw it through the keyhole. That was the last welfare check I ever responded to alone. I couldn't sleep for weeks. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw his face. Those eyes. Pitch black. I don't work the night shift anymore. Too many shadows. Too many questions that never get answered. I sometimes wonder if that thing, whatever it was, ever really left the apartment. Or if it just needed a new host. A new home. Someone else willing to open the door. The Basement Caller. A true police horror story that was never solved. Some calls never make it to the media. Too strange. Too hard to explain. And some are buried for a reason. This is one of those calls. A real 911 recording. A girl. A basement. And a story that still keeps one retired officer awake every night. In 2012, I was working night shifts for the county police department in rural Missouri. Small towns, mostly farmland and forests. Things were usually quiet, until one call changed everything. It was 3:26 a.m. when dispatch came in. 911 call from a young female. Whispering, traced to an abandoned farmhouse outside of town. Caller disconnected after 17 seconds. The location was strange. Nobody had lived there for over 40 years. The Rowley Farm. Locals told stories about it. Haunted, cursed, whatever. Me and my partner, Deputy Marshal, were sent to investigate. We reached the location just after 3:45 a.m. No lights, no sound, just an old, decaying structure in the middle of nowhere. The front door was ajar. We announced ourselves. No response. Stepped inside. Dust everywhere. Rotting floorboards. And an awful smell, like wet earth and something dead. The house was empty, at first. But as we searched, we heard a faint banging coming from beneath us. Rhythmic. Almost like a code. Marshall looked at me. You thinking what I'm thinking? Basement, I said. We found the old trap door in the kitchen floor. Rusty. Wood cracked. But it opened. The stairs were steep and unstable. But we went down. Guns drawn. Flashlights cutting through the darkness. The smell down there was worse. Much worse. And then we saw her. A girl, maybe 14 or 15. Sitting against the far wall. Hands bound. Duct tape over her mouth. Eyes wide with terror. She was shaking violently. We rushed over, untied her, got the tape off. She didn't speak. Couldn't. Just kept staring at the far corner of the room. Marshall looked there, too. Nothing. Who did this to you? I asked. She slowly turned her head and whispered, It lives in the dirt. Investigation. We got her out immediately. Called for backup, EMTs, the works. She was taken to the hospital. Malnourished, dehydrated. No physical abuse, but signs of long-term captivity. But here's where it gets weird. Her name was Emily Parker. Reported missing in 2001. 11 years earlier. She was 3 years old when she disappeared. Now she was a teenager. But no one knew where she'd been, how she ended up in that basement, or why she hadn't aged properly. Yeah, you heard that right. She looked about 14. But by all logic, she should have been in her mid-teens or even 20s. She seemed frozen in time. Her parents? Both passed away years ago. One in a car accident, the other by suicide. When asked about what happened, she gave short, broken answers. It took me. It sings in the walls. It sleeps until it's hungry. The others didn't make it. Others? There were others. We sent full search teams into the farmhouse. The basement had a second tunnel entrance behind a collapsed wall. Inside, we found bones. Human, small, children, 5 sets, some over a decade old. No clothing, no IDs, just scattered bones and carvings on the walls. Symbols, eyes, spirals. One phrase written repeatedly. It feeds on fear. It waits in silence. The aftermath. Emily was placed in state care. She barely spoke, never adjusted. Eventually, she vanished again. Left her foster home in the middle of the night. No sign of forced entry. Just a single note left behind, written in crayon. He's calling again. To this day, nobody knows what really happened at Rowley Farm. It was bulldozed in 2014 after another child went missing nearby. Never found. The case remains open. But unofficially, the locals say the land is cursed, that something ancient and hungry lives beneath the soil. Some officers think Emily wasn't a victim. She was a lure to bring people closer. I retired 2 years later, but I still dream about that night, about the look in that girl's eyes, that emptiness. I still hear that faint banging sometimes when I close my eyes, like it's coming from below, and I wonder, was she ever really rescued, or did we just set something free? The dispatchers last night. One final shift. One last call. A horror story buried in radio silence. They say dispatchers are the calm in chaos. But what happens when chaos is already on the other end of the line, waiting, breathing, and calling for help from a place that doesn't exist? In 2008, I worked as a 911 dispatcher in a small Colorado town. Quiet place, mountain air, low crime. Mostly medical calls and drunk drivers on weekends. But then came my final night shift, and the call, that ended my career. It was just past 2 a.m. The floor was silent, coffee cold, and static on the radio. Then the line blinked. 911, what's your emergency? The voice on the other end was faint. Female, terrified, whispering, please, it's in the house. It has my son. I sat up straight. Ma'am, where you located? Static. Then, we're at 127 Sycamore Lane. Please help me. I typed the address into the system. Nothing. No record. No house. No such street. I asked again. You're not listening. It's in the walls. He's screaming. You have to get him out. I patched it to patrol units. They confirmed it. No Sycamore Lane exists in our entire county. Then the line cut. I tried calling back. Dead. Like the line never existed. A strange location. 10 minutes later, Officer Braxton radioed in. Control, we found something. A mailbox. No road, no lights, no houses. Just a mailbox with 127 scratched into it. Wants to check it out. I froze. There was no road there. Just an overgrown forest trail that hadn't been used in years. But Braxton and his rookie partner, Klein, went in anyway. Dash cams on. They drove for about 4 minutes before the path vanished. Thick trees, fog out of nowhere. And then they saw it. A house. Old. Rotted wood. No lights. A child's red bicycle on the porch. Braxton. Control, we're approaching. Looks wrong. Like it shouldn't be here. The audio crackled. Screams. A child screaming. From inside the house. Klein ran in. Braxton followed. Their radios went dead the moment they crossed the threshold. The footage. Later, we pulled the dashcam footage. Everything up to the moment they entered was clear. Then, heavy breathing, loud banging, and a deep voice, low and vibrating like it was inside the car. Not yours. Not yours. Not yours. Then silence. 35 minutes passed. Then Braxton's voice. Control. We need help. Klein's gone. It's on the floor. It dragged him down. I'm hiding in the attic. Please, please get me out. It knows my name. But he never answered again. They found a patrol car next day. in the middle of a field. No house, no mailbox, no trail, like it was never there. Just a car, still running. Dash cam melted inside, and deep claw marks on the back seat. The truth, Klein was never found. Braxton was. Naked, 5 miles from the car. Screaming and covered in dirt. He couldn't speak for a year. When he finally did, he said, "It knew I was coming. It called me. I wasn't saving anyone. I was the call." He never worked again. And me? That was my last shift. I quit the next morning. They say Sycamore Lane doesn't exist. But every year, on the same night, we get one single call. Same voice, same address, same screams. No one answers it anymore. And the new dispatchers? They're told one rule on their first day. If you hear a woman whispering from Sycamore Lane, hang up